Ready?
行くぞもい
行きますえ
Hey, how's it going? So Virtua Fighter is going through a bit of a revival right now, with people trying out the recent R.E.V.O beta from about a month ago, with R.E.V.O actually coming out in about a day, if I upload this on time. Oh, and also... So that's pretty cool. It's gotten to the point where it's begun to catch on in the Tekken community as well, as a sizable chunk of people are starting to get a bit jaded to the direction that game's going, and they're looking for something to fill that martial art focused fighting game void. And from what I've seen both in the online space and my local scene, is Tekken players given the game a shot tend to follow a bit of a script, where they load into the game, they immediately have to get used to having a guard button, they're trying to play footsies but the game feels like moving through molasses, and they try and step and attack and punish but their move doesn't come out for some reason. What do you mean throws are unseeable three-way guesses that I have to be... I'm going back to Tekken, this game sucks. Okay, so maybe that was more of my experience from a year ago, but I've begun seeing the same shit on my Twitter feed, so I figured as someone who went through it relatively recently, it'd be worthwhile making a video on what tripped me up, so hopefully you don't go through the same frustrations that I went through. Who am I kidding? I'm still going through them, but hey, we can go through them together. So this video is going to be broken up into what I feel like a Tekken player will struggle with the most coming into Virtua Fighter, focused around what Virtua Fighter does differently to Tekken around the same elements of gameplay, which, at least in my experience, was blocking, movement, Okizeme, throws, and at the end I'll throw in a few Virtua Fighter only concepts that I feel a Tekken player would struggle adapting to, and there'll be timestamps for each one. I will emphasize though that this is not going to be a deep coverage on these concepts, nor is it going to be a basic how to play Virtua Fighter guide. This is just a video from a Tekken player who's coming into Virtua Fighter for other Tekken players coming into Virtua Fighter. Having only played for a year against the same people day in day out, I am not qualified enough for this video to be anything else. That being said though, if you want to explore these concepts further, and I highly recommend you do, I'll be linking a plethora of content in the description made by people who've been playing this game longer than I've been alive. Please check them out. Okay, so overly long intro out of the way, I think it's time we got started. So just to refresh, blocking in Tekken is done with a held back input for highs and mids and a held down back input for lows. There's a limited neutral guard, but it's wildly inconsistent and unreliable, especially in Tekken 8. Blocking in Virtua Fighter follows the same rules more or less, but it's done with a dedicated block button. This means a few things. 1, there's no neutral guard, meaning you're either blocking or you're not, and 2, you can combine the block button with another input and remain blocking as long as you press the block button first. This is commonly used for guard throw escape or stagger recovery, but I'll touch more on those concepts later. What? You didn't think I was going to use Tekken 8 as the example for this, did you? Come on. So traditionally in Tekken, every direction of movement, from sidestep to forward and backdash, is fully cancelable at all times. This can be done with a block, an attack, or another movement input. The cancel system makes for easier, immediate reactions to game states possible. Things like step guarding, step whiff punishment, dash blocking, etc. feels very smooth and is very simple to understand, with a lot of room for freedom of expression and not too many complicated inputs. Except for, you know, that one. Also, distance travelled when moving and block being available at all times meant the game tended to be played at more range 2 to 4 than range 1 to 2. But small hurt boxes and a reliable dash block and step guard meant that the close-up game could be effective as well. Virtua Fighter's movement system is more restrictive than Tekken's is in a few ways, primarily the movement cancelling system and what it will allow you to do. Virtua Fighter's cancel system works like this. A forward dash can be cancelled into a guard, a sidestep, or an attack. And I believe technically you can't cancel it into a backdash, but forward dashing recovers so quickly it almost feels like you can. A backdash can be cancelled into a sideways movement, or an attack, but not a guard. And sidesteps can only be cancelled with a forwards or backwards movement, not a guard or an attack. There are ways around that however, but it's a big facet of high-level Virtua Fighter, so I'll link some more in-depth guides below. Something to note though, if your sidestep successfully evades an attack, you'll be kind of locked into using the advantage you gained from evading. This means any cancelling inputs get ignored. Also, every character has an enhanced sidestep called an offensive move, which will travel further to the opponent's side, but will negate the evasive property of a defensive move. Which, by the way, defensive move is just Virtua Fighter speak for sidestep. So now that we're a bit more familiar with the rules of movement, how can we play around them to create space or reposition to gain advantage? Firstly, keep in mind that again, Virtua Fighter's neutral game focuses way more on the close range compared to Tekken, even Tekken 8. That's for a few good reasons too, given how reliable the sidestep system is and how safe forward movement is with dash block, and how heavily you can be punished if you get caught backdashing, among other things. But that doesn't mean spacing can't play a role in your neutral game, especially on certain characters. Here are some techniques that I've seen professional players use in a tournament setting. First up is the box step. It's done by executing a backdash into a defensive move, into a forward dash, into another defensive move. This is used to cover multiple bases when moving around, so don't think of it like one big movement technique. The backdash covers short-reaching moves, the defensive move covers longer linear moves, and the sidestep forward dash will allow you to block long-range circulars. You can also sidestep into a forward crouch dash to beat delayed highs and throws. Play around with each segment of the box step to gather information on your opponent's habits and tendencies. Next up, the stair step or ladder step. This is done by executing a backdash into a defensive move multiple times to create distance quickly. You'll often see stair steps done at the beginning of a round as a non-committal way of feeling out the opponent, and while it does cover a lot of bases, it will lose to a round start throw. If you're looking to quickly reposition, offensive moves done post-knockdown can put someone's back to the wall instantly. You can also carry over concepts you may have already learnt in Tekken, such as creating whiff opportunities with good pushback buttons. Like any fighting game, I'd recommend watching high-level play with the specific intent of understanding how the best players use these kind of techniques, and I'll link some resources below. The general Okizeme game across both Tekken and Virtua Fighter tends to function the same. Both games follow the very surface level flowchart of I knock you down, you use a tech roll or an Ukemi to avoid float combos and non-guaranteed follow-ups. If I read your tech roll, I can use my heavy frame advantage to run my mix-ups on you. To avoid waking up into a mix-up, you don't tech roll and you stay grounded. And if I read you stay grounded, I try for follow-ups. Both games have different down positions that will affect how the Okizeme game works. These are face up feet towards, face up feet away, face down feet towards, or face down feet away. The way these down positions affect the game is pretty much the same between both Tekken and Virtua Fighter, where face up feet towards and face down feet away being the safe positions, and face up feet away and face down feet towards having get up vulnerabilities. In Tekken, and especially in Tekken 7 and 8, there are a lot of moves that will hit someone when they're on the ground. And on top of that, there are no invulnerability frames upon someone's get up animation, meaning that you can hit them or force a block at least from the first frame of someone's get up animation. Meaning overall you have to be more wary of how you get off the ground. This also means you can counter hit get up attacks. Virtua Fighter plays the ground game vastly differently to Tekken, as when someone is on the ground in Virtua Fighter, they are completely immune to all attacks except dedicated ground hitting ones, meaning even lows will just clip through their body and not touch them. On top of that, OTG attacks will lose to properly timed side or back rolling, though this is dependent on the type of down attack you use, as every character has two different types, a heavy and a light. The light is faster, deals less damage, the heavy is slower, deals more damage. In Virtua Fighter, you cannot interrupt wake-up attacks during their startup. What you can use, however, is called a wake-up meaty. A meaty attack must be a mid that deals more damage than the wake-up attack, which is 21 damage or more. The move must connect during the active frames of the wake-up attack, and if this is something you have trouble timing, you can use frame kills with either buttons or dashes. Most wake-up attacks are fully circular and have a huge range, and they're nearly impossible to avoid without the use of a Ramawari, which, as you may have already guessed, is another loaded term that I'll be supplying a guide for in the description. For now, just know that it's a way of making your opponent's get-up attack go in the completely wrong direction. How does it work? I have no idea. Normal and post side roll wake up attacks are -6 on block, which is a big deal given that 6 frames of advantage is basically the magic mix-up number in this game. And if they back roll into a get up kick, they are -15 on block, which can be a launch for some or just a heavy punish for others. Throws are generally the same concept between both games. You have high and crouch throws for neutral, and ground and air throws for Okizeme and combos respectively. Throw escapes, however, are very different between Tekken and Virtua Fighter. In Tekken, throw escapes are done by either pressing left punch, right punch, or both punches, for the most part. Crouch throws are now unbreakable as of Tekken 8, and ground throws are able to be teched on a short window. In prior games, throws didn't track at all, and in Tekken 8, normal throws will track while command throws will not. Also, you can be thrown during attack startup. And if you're wondering why I point that out, it's because in Virtua Fighter you are completely invulnerable to being thrown when attacking, regardless of how minus you are. Which before I even get into breaking throws, you should know that mashing through them, or abare, is pretty much the best way to punish a poorly timed throw. This is going to be one of those things that takes a long time to wrap your head around coming into Virtua Fighter. But for actually breaking throws, it is usually a true 3-way guess, as there are no visual indicators between the direction coming your way. On top of that, the actual throw break window is so small it only really serves a purpose to aid in the consistency of a throw break read than it does an actual throw break window. For the most part, assume that you just have to be breaking the throw preemptively when it connects to you. For your run-of-the-mill standing throw, this can be done with punch plus guard, and also a forwards, backwards, or neutral input. These rules will also carry over to most character-specific special throws as well, such as Brad's clinch or Vanessa's mount. For crouch throws, the concept is roughly the same, but it must be done with an extra down input. So instead of forward and back throws, there's down, forward and down back, and down instead of neutral. Ground throws must be teched with a down diagonal or down input. The game will register both diagonals as the same to prevent camera mix-ups. Side throws, however, depart from the regular throw break rules. Instead of matching your opponent's input to escape, you're instead supposed to match your directional input to what side your opponent is on. Also, crouch throw rules will still apply here. So if they are on your left side, you must break with a down plus left, right side, down plus right. So, we've made it through the 4 aspects that the games do differently. Now I'm going to give a bit of time to some VF-only info, starting with stagger, as this mechanic seems to be one of the more polarizing aspects of the game for newbies. So stagger is a hit effect attached to a range of attacks, or attacks used in certain situations. When a stagger attack lands, the opponent is put at a very heavy disadvantage, with the caveat that they can struggle to minimize the level of disadvantage that they are in. To properly struggle, you hold down guard and you mash punch and kick while wiggling the stick back and forth. The faster you do this, the more inputs you get out, the quicker you'll recover. Depending on the stagger that you've been put into, this can be the difference between a full-on combo or just a little extra damage. The stagger mechanic is probably going to be one of the biggest issues you face when learning this game, as it basically holds your matchup knowledge at gunpoint. You really need to know what your opponent's stagger options are if you want to reliably defend against them, and that will take months to years of game time. This is definitely going to make or break the game for some of you, but if it makes you feel better, they're probably going to give stagger the axe in VF6. Alright, that's that one out of the way. Here's some random tidbits for you. The input buffer in Virtua Fighter is 12 frames, meaning you have 12 frames of leeway when in block stun to input a move before you come out of block stun. When you whiff or block punish something, you get a 25% damage boost on your first hit. If you track a sidestep with a circular move, you get a 50% damage increase. Tech rolling to the side will vastly decrease your recovery time compared to tech rolling in place. And that about does it for all the info I've got for you today. This one took a fair bit of research to make, so I hope you found the info helpful. And I hope that most of you will push past some of the tougher adaptations you'll have to make coming from Tekken, as if you're anything like me and you enjoy a deep skill expression and a meaningful skill gap, I feel like Virtua Fighter 5 supplies that in spades more than what they're trying to turn Tekken into. Anyway, I hope to see you in the game. Catch ya.